Hi, I'm Dr. George Yancey. Let's share some paradigms. And the paradigm I share today concerns prophet, priest, turning point. I want to talk about a theory by a sociologist, a classical sociologist by the name of Max Weber. Max Weber had this very interesting theory, and the theory concerns how religions emerge. Now, Weber argues that there's what he calls a prophet and a priest. The prophet is this person with great charisma. Now, the way we define charisma is someone who can get others to do what they want them to do. Now, they do it by their force of personality. Like, as a professor, I can get my students to read certain things. But that's not because I have charisma, it's because I control their grades. Your employer can get you to do certain things, not because that person has charisma, because they're paying you money, right? As a parent, I try to get my kids to do certain things. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. It's not about charisma. I have a certain authority. So charisma, though, is someone who can convince you to do things. And they don't have any authority. They don't have any bureaucratic power. That person can be a prophet. And when Weber is thinking about, the great religious founders, Jesus, Muhammad, the Buddha, all these founders, they had charisma. People followed them. They were passionate. Okay. Eventually, the prophet loses this power. Eventually, the prophet's going to die. So he loses power that way. Maybe the prophet gets too old and affirmed. The prophet eventually loses the power. But you have all these people. That's when the priest comes in. The priest creates what Weber calls a bureaucracy. The priest says the prophet means this, the prophet does that, the priest says order, and then you establish this new religion. Now, it's not a guarantee because you had a great prophet that the religion is going to be established. You may not get a priest that comes by and establishes it. But the great religions, Weber believes, had this sort of pattern. You have this prophet, you have this priest. Now you're thinking, okay, this is a nice sociology lesson, Dr. Yancey. I did not sign up for your sociology religion course. What does it have to do with today? And turning point. You mentioned turning point. I want some turning point. Okay, here we go. I think it's reasonable. And by the way, I've probably seen more videos of Charlie Kirk over the past couple of weeks than I had my entire life, because it keeps coming on my social media and things of this nature. And one thing I can say about Kirk is that he had charisma. You look at him, and by the way, a lot of people have charisma. Doesn't mean he has charisma for me, but I could see the charisma and how people were drawn to him and how they were following him. He had charisma. He also has a very tragic death, which in some ways increases his charisma. Almost like he's a saint figure, So he has charisma. He's a prophet. He's a prophet in the Weberian sense. I'm not saying he predicted the future. He's a prophet in the sense that Weber is talking about. But what about the priest? Here's where my idea comes in mind. Erica Kirk, as I did not know who she was before Kirk was killed. Erica Kirk, she gave that talk where she forgave the man, the murder of her husband. She is someone that I originally thought of was, okay, she's Miss Arizona 2012, a pretty face he was drawn to, understandably so. No, she's more than that. She has a PhD, I believe, in leadership studies from Liberty. She was running a couple of businesses under Turning Point. One, I think, Impact Clothing or something like that. She was running businesses, She has a doctorate. And she's 5 years older than Kirk, which tells me she has a little bit more maturity than what we think of as, the pretty woman on his arm. She wasn't just a pretty woman on his arm. And they've given control of Turning Point. She's the new CEO. She's a person with skills. She may not have the charisma of Kirk. He had a great deal of charisma. She gave a great memorial, but she doesn't have to have that charisma. She could be a good priest, and as a priest, she could turn Turning Point into something much more than what it was. Before I talk about that, let me just say that I hope you're enjoying this. I hope you like these sort of insights. I hope I didn't drive you away talking about Weber, prophet, priest. If you like things like this, consider subscribing. Give me a like. Leave me a comment. If you disagree, leave me a comment. I'm fine with that. I'm trying to build this. I want this to be a place where Christians can come and not be beholden to one side or the other, left or right, but we could just really struggle and find our ways in understanding our society and understanding our growth in our faith. So, and also, if you kind of enjoyed the way I'm applying sociological theory to a current event, we'll probably in a couple of months develop a playlist where I'm going to apply sociological theory to scripture. I don't know if anyone's ever done that. Definitely not a whole playlist of it. And I'm going to try to be the first one to do that. And so you may want to come along for the ride. Okay, what does this mean? I believe that before he was murdered, Kirk was one of several influential conservative commentators. He engaged in these debates. There are others, such as Shapiro, who did so as well. So he was one of several commentators. Obviously, his murder has done something that has elevated his status, his afterlife, his status in death has been raised. And Turning Point's in a position to take a role that's bigger than it originally was. Originally, it was a useful tool that's used by Republicans to win elections, to turn out vote, to get their ideas out. There are other vehicles, whether they're better than Turning Point or not, I don't know. There are other vehicles that are doing this, but it's in a position to take the lead role. What I think this means is the construction, not just of a political movement, not just of a religious movement, but a combination thereof. A type of Christianity that's rooted in support of political conservatism, the ideology that's driving the Republicans, a MAGA type of Christianity, if you will. Will it become its own denomination, or will certain churches just pay allegiance to Turning Point? Who knows? I think this could be the start of something big. Now, it depends on how talented is Erica Kirk in being a priest. She's been given the power. She's allowed to use that power and use it in a way that's very effective, which I'm not sure she is, but I'm not sure she's not either. She has some training in leadership skills. I'm not sure she is or is not, but if she is, Turning Point could blow up in a way that it becomes the baddest boy on the block, if you want to put it that way. Here's something else. I've videoed on Southern Baptists. They're in decline. In the Southern Baptists, there is now an argument as far as how political should we be. And I think part of what's happening is that argument's helping to divide the Southern Baptists. They're getting older. Turning Point tends to be younger. As they decline, is it possible that some of their loss will go to something like Turning Point? People that want a more political, Republican political Christianity. I think that that's very well possible. So we may be in a position to observe the emergence almost of a new religion, but a new expression of a Christian religion, a political expression of a Christian religion, a MAGA, if you will, expression of a Christian religion. And we have the elements that Weber says we need, the prophet and the priest, in order for this to happen. This is worth noting and worth observing. And I'm not going to do direct research on Turning Point. I have a lot of other things on my plate, but I'm going to watch with great interest to see if this happens. And it's just a reminder just how sociological theory can give us insight. It can teach us what to look for and what we're seeing when we see it. And so once again, I'll just say, look for me in a couple of months to do that playlist, because I think that sociological theory can help inform us in Scripture. Scripture is always the dominant. It's the primary. But we can also gain knowledge through sociological theory and understanding what's happening in Scripture. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this little discussion. And once again, please feel free to add to the discussion in the comments and come back. We can shatter some more paradigms.